Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. We have a full house tonight. We got Brian and Hannah with me. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
And, of course, my name is Jen. I'll be the hostess for the evening. Well, according to the bylaws and guidelines of the show, Hannah, you get to start us off. How was your week? I think it was kind of fabulous.
Well, actually, how was your 2 weeks? Because you weren't here. No.
It really was.
Yeah.
I was gone for 10 days, and they were 10 fantastic days of getting paid to do nothing.
Nice.
Yeah, so flew over to... Had some difficulty getting over to New York, but just everything kind of worked itself out. I'd miss one flight, then another one would turn out I'd miss it, and then I was able to get on another flight and ended up over there and hung out with my friend Dolores, who is a she's my friend that actually works in mental health field and does she teaches at Keene college or university. She has like 2 classes, I think, teaches psychology and stuff. And then she works for a therapy clinic, and then also does a 1 day a week stint at an ER, which had some entertaining stories.
Oh, I bet.
And those are part of her clinicals to eventually, get her own license,
right.
Nice.
To work as a therapist. But she's also a coach. That's her main, that's where her, there's not a lot of money in being a therapist, but coaching, on the other hand, if you can really get it going. And so she has a partner, and they're really working on, hitting high-end clientele. And, it's just a matter of that stuff's word of mouth.
Right.
Sure.
Once you get a connection and stuff. So, but I love talking to her because I get the professional perspective on things that we talk about on here a lot, and, friends and stuff like that. And I just love to throw things at her because she goes one layer deeper than almost anybody else would.
Yeah.
And from a clinical standpoint, and there are several times where I'm like, man, I should be taking notes.
Right?
You're right.
Yeah.
So I always enjoy my time with her. And then I got to go do a podcast with some guys from Staten Island, and that was a blast. Finally, again, getting to meet some people that I've only Skyped with and heard their voices. So that was a really good time. Cool. And there was a nor'easter that came in while I was there. So there was a day of doing thing.
when I first saw in the news or the weather that was going that way, and I'm like, I don't think Hen was going to be out of there before that. So I was going to ask you if that got you or not.
Yeah, there was just one day where we were sitting there, and she's like, and like her school was closed, and there, high winds and blah blah blah. And I'm looking out the window, I'm like, oh, it doesn't look that bad to me. And then all of a sudden, this tree just goes crashing down in the woods behind her house.
Right?
It's like, no, that was a tree that had no leaves on it. Maybe it is bad out there.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, every time cows flying past.
No, nothing like that. Exactly. There were these couple of birds hanging out on this tree behind this window. They just look miserable. You poor dudes. Yeah, I had a great time, and then the last day was pretty nice. And I luckily was smart and set my flight for later in the day, so we went up to Princeton, and I got to walk around that town. Really, really beautiful town, and very well dressed people. Yeah. And had some really good food also, like just,
nice.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then went and flew into California, and the first day I went into San Francisco, and it was just a gorgeous day. I saw Neil from the Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks podcast.
Never heard of him.
We hung out for a little while at his work.
Never heard of him. Yeah.
And that was really cool. And then I met my friend Lana, who I haven't talked to her in a while. And she's like, I'm about to go down the beach. You want to walk down the beach with me? I'm like, that sounds great. Mm-hmm. So to be out on the beach in a t-shirt in, the beginning of March is pretty awesome. Yeah. And we walked all the way down Ocean Beach and back almost, we probably did about 2/3 to 3/4 of the beach and back. And she lost her mother last year and her best friend, or one of her best friends.
Right.
And there's a reason I like to. The people that I go visit when I'm in town are the people that open themselves up to me and talk to me about what's going on in their lives and how they're getting through things.
Sure.
And Lana she just shared what she went through, how she's gotten through it, things, epiphanies along the way, moments. And they're important because for me, that was her really first significant loss. Yeah. And the thing is that she lost her best friend first. And she was just kind of getting past that. And then mom just went fast. And, I've never really lost anyone in that I've been very close to in my family.
Yeah.
And so it's something where I like to hear other people's stories because just that idea of like, I want to get through it in, with some grace and dignity.
Yeah.
And so I that's just part of who I am now is to look towards people who've done things in a way that I admire. And so, yeah, she shared a lot of, it was just very beautiful. And, and then after that, what was great is I went and met someone who I hadn't seen in a while. And the last time we saw each other was like 20 something years ago. And we were both hot messes. I mean, the hottest of messes.
Right.
It was a bad night. And
so it's kind of like doing a high school reunion a little bit. Cause like, remember the hairstyles we used to wear? Yeah.
Yeah.
Except worse.
Except worse. Yeah. Because we're literally talking about the worst of things. But she's been sober now for over 10 years, like 11 years.
Awesome.
And it's just wild because it's going to be 12 for me in April. And just to talk and to talk about what it's like to be sober now compared to that. And I have nothing like, we only hung out for like an hour and a half, so I didn't get to hear everything. But I mean, the girl had some consequences, some serious consequences, and her story, just what she went through and everything. It's one of those very inspirational stories. I'm just like, I am so high bottom compared to you. Like, I just lost my dignity.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And really,
I lost pick that up.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something that will rebound.
Yeah, I lost self-respect.
Yeah.
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 I wasn't on the street. So yeah, but it was just and then I made it out of the city and up north and saw my other friend that I've known forever. And then Tuesday, my mom cracked a bone in her wrist over the weekend. No. Yeah, so she like can't drive, or if she can, but it's just very difficult, and just doing anything is just very difficult right now. Yeah. So she was like, hey, because I was going to do some things around the house, and she's like, can you drive me to the grocery store and do some other things? I'm like, no. Absolutely. And so we did this. I mean, it was great. There I am in the grocery store pushing mom's grocery cart for her.
Sure. I did the same thing yesterday, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I did some things for them around the house, and then we went and saw we went to the Marin Symphony and saw a classical music program. It was awesome. I mean, it was really fun, and all the neighbors were there, so we kind of were hanging out in the nosebleed seats, all to a section by ourselves, and it was a really, really great program. It was weird. The name of the conductor was bugging the crap out of me. And then in the intermission, Bill said, that he also works at Sun Valley. He's in charge of the Sun Valley Summer Symphony. I'm like, that's why his name is familiar. I was like, man, why would I know some conductor in Marin?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm so in with the classical music.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So yeah.
Yeah. And then ended up, end of the week, and went up had to kind of day for myself, and then ended up in Eugene. And I literally got to Eugene, and it was just radio silence from anyone that I was hoping to see there. And I was like, okay, and so I decided, I was a little grumpy about it, but I decided to make the best of it. And I went and saw a movie, and then, came back and just got online. And I was just like, Sharon literally was like, why don't you try Tinder? And I'm like, are you serious? She's like, why not? And I'm like, well, why not? So I did. And I just, I just put in there, just the truth, who I am, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And this woman had this great profile. It was very witty, really funny. And, I just said, she's like, wow, that really sucks. You must be lonely. And I'm like, well, not so much now, but for a while there I was looking kind of bad. She's like, well, tomorrow night, why don't you can come out and hang out with me and my friends. And, if you don't mind hanging out with my friends. So I'm like, no, I love that. Adventure. Yeah. And then, the next day I went, and, the next morning, cause I hadn't posted where I was. And then I did post, and then Sharon's brother, who lives like 20 minutes south, got a hold of me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm not working. Let's get together. So it was great. I had lunch with the in-law. Nice. And he does, this was really cool. He trains, and according to Sharon, he's sought after for his training, but he trains for, bird dog contests. And cool. So I saw his new dog, Toby, and, he let him run in this field by their house. And so he owns the house that Sharon grew up in. Okay. And so it was really neat. I'm like, okay. And then I got to see all over the town, everything like that. It was really fun. And then, but he takes me out, he says, you want to see the dogs, because I asked him, I said, so what are you being judged on? He's like, well, you want to watch it? I'm like, sure. Yeah. Why not? So he goes, he's got pigeons, and he grabs a couple of pigeons and put them out there, and he ran, Jack through his things that he does. And then Toby is very young. He's like 8 months old. And then and Toby does a little different thing. Because he's so young, and did the whole thing. I was like, wow, that is impressive. I mean, it was really neat.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so, yeah, it was really fun. And then that night I went out, met this total stranger and had the greatest time. That's awesome. Totally, in the serious dive bar, but just people that, people that are there to, to drink and have a good time on a Friday night, but the people are into having fun. Playing games, doing this. It was weird. The whole group, everyone had a book on them, which just cracked me up.
Wow, that's different. Yeah.
Well, because I used to do that when I'd go to a bar, because I'd usually get there kind of early, and I'd have a book and I'd read. Mm-hmm. And usually I'd meet somebody else. I realized that a long time ago, it's a good way to meet people like me, because, only people that would bring a book to a bar would walk up to somebody else with a
Yeah, right, yeah,
at
sure.
a bar.
Yeah.
You know you have something common to start with.
Yeah, and that's all these people, and so all of a sudden there's this conversation breaking about the Iliad and the Odyssey, while everyone's out there just chain smoking, and I'm like, this is so weird.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah. And so gave one person who had a little too much a ride home, which was great. And then I, next morning headed, all day just travel. I had 4 hours in Portland Airport, so that really sucked. But watched some movies and got home last night, and it was a great time. So yeah, that was my vacation. Wow. And then tomorrow's my birthday. Yay!
Oh, that's right. It is. That. I was going to say, I thought it was close, but I haven't committed it to memory yet, so I may not. I'm very weird about birthdays.
It's quite all right.
It actually came up on my calendar. My calendar is synced with Facebook. Oh, so it popped up on my calendar. Like, Hannah's birthday is tomorrow. I'm like, okay.
Right.
I must admit, I was surprised by the number. That does not compute with far at all.
Yeah, you don't look 65 at all, dude. Seriously.
No.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you lied on your Facebook profile because there's no way.
That's smart.
Right?
I had somebody on Tinder that I matched with. She sent me a thing and she didn't believe that I'm 39. And I was like, I can show you on my my ID where I was like, I'm not lying. I don't care.
You don't look it.
Yeah, and she was like, I thought you were like, mid 30s or early 30s. And I was like, yeah, I was at one point.
Rumor has it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's funny. I joined this LGB. Oh, geez, I don't even know. There's so many letters now. LGBTQ. There's a bunch of other ones. Yeah. There's A's in there for asexual now, and there's a few more. At any rate, I joined a Facebook group because they do. They're doing like a seminar in April about. It's about alternative relationships, and it's poly relationships and all these different types of, and it's all about acceptance. That's the main thing.
Right.
And it's really focused on people that not only do they want to have necessarily maybe a non-monogamous relationship, but also one that is, they could be asexual, they could be bisexual, they could be queer, they could be whatever they identify.
Right.
And I'm like, these are people I just resonate with people like that now. It's really about people becoming true to themselves and following their truth. And so I jumped in this group and I mentioned the fact that I did this a Tinder thing. And they had all of these questions, and it was fun, to answer, because they're like, well, what was it like? What did you write? How did you write a profile?
Yeah, because I would imagine for a lot of people in any sort of an alternative lifestyle relationship, however you want to look at it, that in that community, I would imagine that sometimes it's tough to write a profile because a lot of things are not cut and dried. It's not A or B. It's both or neither, or it might be A, B, and C. So it's and
especially if you have this. You might want to meet new people. You might want to actually do something like dating, but you don't want it to necessarily be about long-term relationships or meeting the love of your life, and you don't want it to be about a hookup.
I'll tell you what, that is a really hard thing to put into words for like a Tinder kind of thing, because that's actually what I was trying to put on mine. Because it's like, I'm not really looking in for like one night stands, but I'm also not like, oh my God, I have to find my forever person. It's like, at this point, I just want to have fun with somebody. If it turns into something awesome, if it doesn't, that's fine too, but it's hard to put that on there because as a guy, I think it's almost always going to read as they don't want to commit and they want hookups. I think that it reads that way more than it reads as anything else.
Yep. Yeah, and it was neat to share that and to share because you have to be on there to start reading what other people have written, unless you go onto like some website, which I did actually. I went onto a couple websites. I'm like, what should I say? But what I did is I realized it was just easier to read other people's profiles and see what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And to see, okay, yes, definitely knows. Okay, oh wow, that's a phrase that I could use. So I put the phrase in.
Yeah.
Boom. That helped. And little things like that. And so it was really kind of fun because it just made me laugh like I've never used it before.
Right.
That's really awesome. And, and I think that's a great encouragement for those out there that are a little bit on the shy side or want an adventure but are kind of afraid to take that first step.
Yeah.
I think that's right there is a great testimony of why it's so important. Take that next step. Just throw caution to the wind once in a while. Be safe about it, of course. Please be safe. But throw a little caution to the wind. Play around a little bit. See what happens, And life is about those adventures and those moments.
And and the thing is, it's like the more you're on Tinder, you'll see a lot of different, like, I'm just looking for somebody to go get a drink with tonight. I'm looking for someone to just hang out with, and then there's obviously all the dating stuffs and the hookup stuff. But, and there's, I'll see occasionally, like, I'm in town tonight and I need a date for a wedding, like stuff like that. Yeah. I'm like, that would be wild. I can't imagine the first time you meet somebody, like, sure, I'll go to a wedding with you. It just seems weird,
Exactly.
Well, Sharon uses it when she goes down to Boise with her, with her girlfriends and they're just having like a girls' weekend. They'll throw it up there because it's like, guys, like hang out with people, and that's what they do. And if somebody's looking to hook up, boom, they can go hook up. If somebody's just looking to have fun and hang out with some people, then they just hang out with some people.
Yeah.
And it's every time she tells me the stories about it, I'm like, wow, that seems really easy. And then it turned out to be kind of easy. So it
must
cool.
be nice.
Now, don't jealousy.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself there.
And then I was like, so Brian, how was your week? Well, I had this Tinder date and it was horrible and it sucked. And
I got ghosted. Hard pass continues. Oh man, it is amazing. Like I have had a few hookups on there that literally the next day the person doesn't respond. So I'm like, okay. And one I talked to for like a week and then just nothing. Like she just just at first she was kind of like, oh, we should meet. And I'm like, yeah, what do you want? Kind of thing. And it just, then it was like 2 days before she messaged me back. And then when she finally did, it was kind of, it was like, oh, how are you today? It was almost like starting over kind of a thing. And then that was it. No more. And I was like, okay, well, this is somebody who just probably doesn't know what the hell's going on. So, but I don't know. For the most part, I'm on it just for the people watching because the profiles sometimes are fantastic,
Is that where the picture of a woman in a graveyard with the gravestone came from?
No, I think that one came from...
Oh, that's right.
I think that came from Plenty of Fish.
That was terrible.
That was a pretty classic one. So somebody with a gravestone smiling and all cuted up and just smiling with a little gravestone. And it's like, okay, hey, you're into gravestones, cool.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Yeah,
that's going to sing to some people. It's,
no judgment here.
Right.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you want to go next, Brian, or do you want me to?
I can, if you want. It's, I went to therapy this week and it was amazing to realize, it was one of those sessions where partway through I could feel lighter, type of a situation. And, and I even mentioned it to my therapist, that I went in there feeling really, I had still been feeling overwhelmed a lot. And I went in there just kind of meh. And, just talking about things and whatnot, I felt that weight kind of lift off of me. And, it's one of those times where it makes you realize, like, you don't necessarily think about how you need to go for something like that. And then you're in there and you're like, wow, I'm really glad I'm here. like, I'm glad that this happened because I didn't realize how badly I needed it, kind of a deal. Mm. So, and that was good. I like I said, I was glad to get that, because it really has helped. The last couple of days I've been feeling as overwhelmed, and I think that's kind of what it was to some extent, was I think it was kind of building up in me. And, I haven't really gone and done much because of headaches and different stuff. So I think the combination of the two, like, I really haven't blown off any steam, kind of a thing, and it's just been, compounding. But yeah, anyway, it was a good session. Like I said, I walked out. It was funny. Because, I tell her that, and then as I'm walking out, I can, again, I'm feeling lighter, and just as I'm walking out, like, the sun breaks through the clouds. Yeah, and I just laughed because it was, the coincidence of it was just really funny to me, so, but yeah, there was that, and, although I have noticed that, like, some of the stuff with my anxiety is really grabbing onto me at times. So, I've got an appointment coming up with my psychiatrist to talk to him about, whether or not my medicine's doing what it should, or, what we're going to do with that. It's like I was in the grocery store yesterday, and I absolutely hate going to the grocery store on weekends, because people are there, they're in a hurry because nobody wants to be there. They all want to get home, and people tend to be more rude. They don't watch where they're going. It's just annoying to me from beginning to end. And as we're walking around and stuff, I was just getting more and more and more frustrated and anxious. And, and I was like, I haven't felt completely like this in the store in a while. Like I've been doing pretty good about it, because usually what I'll do now is, if I'm feeling that way, I'll kind of go down an aisle where nobody is, and I'll breathe for a minute, and then I'm usually okay. So I don't know why, yesterday was just too much, I guess. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is, earlier in the day yesterday, it was my grandma's 100th birthday, and there was a party for it at her church, and, went out there for a couple hours, and the only thing I can think of would be from, like, the social interactivity of that maybe I had hit my fill and not realized it, and then going into the store, I'm kind of, it's the old raw nerve kind of scenario, to where just any little thing was making me, anxious or angry or whatever. Yeah, it was really strange, like I hate that feeling, because when I get to that feeling, I try really hard not to, but I'm very likely to snap at people, and I try really hard not to do that, but it's very difficult to do. So yeah, I got home, actually kind of came in my room, just got on the computer for a little bit, and, basically distracted myself with, some podcasts and whatnot. So, it ended up working. It just took a while. I think that's probably what it ended up being, is just so much, it was too much stimulation basically for me, because I was seeing family I haven't seen in years, and there was a lot of people there, and, just a lot going on. So, trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's about it for me for the week. I haven't, like I said, I haven't really been doing much. One thing that's nice, I've had less headaches this week than I had the previous 2 weeks. Because the previous 2 weeks combined, I had 3 days that I didn't have headaches. This week, I think I had 4 days where I didn't have headaches. So,
awesome.
Right.
Yeah, so hopefully it's moving that way.
Moving in the right direction.
Yeah. We'll see. Probably not, though, because this time of year, this area, we tend to start getting rain. And and it's so sporadic, but it's, our weather here it's pretty much in 2-day runs, so we'll see.
Well, I had kind of a fun week, because, you think here, Unfortunately, folks, when I'm working the nights, I'm realizing my days and stuff are running together. I think I mentioned that last time on the podcast. So I may forget things that I've mentioned on here before, because I forget what day we record and all that good jazz.
Right.
But that being said, I did, for those of you who hadn't heard or I didn't tell yet, I did accept a new position at a new company. So I've just finished my first of my last 2 weeks. So I'm coming on to my next week is my last week at my current job. I start the new job on the 19th. So I'm very excited about that. I will say it's been very interesting because I'm working through, I think, a lot of feelings around the whole separation. Separating from the job that I know, but also some of the people. Mm-hmm. And I am, of course, a person that is very positive and always puts on a very positive note and wants to spin everything and make it happy and stuff. And when something doesn't fit into that box, it's really difficult for me to comprehend. And so I'm going through some of that. There's some people who are not wishing me the best in the world, which
right.
is really difficult for me to accept, not because because their opinion matters to me that much, because it really doesn't, because if they cared enough about me, they'd be happy for me. Mm-hmm. So if they're not happy for me, then obviously they don't have a place in my world. So that's not the problem as much as I can't comprehend why you would not feel happy for someone. It's like I can't comprehend how you wouldn't want to wish someone the best if they're bettering themselves.
Mm-hmm. When you're coming from a place when you're coming from a place of misery, it's hard to be happy for somebody else. Or you could have the mindset of, well, that's not fair, or whatever. Or like in our situation, like for me, for the longest time, I would always, it wasn't that I wished ill toward anyone else or I wish they didn't have things, but it's like, well, why doesn't it happen for me too? And I basically lay my issues over their good news, kind of a situation.
I can see that. It's really causing me to kind of look at who I want to be and who I choose to be. And understand that it's okay. Other people aren't going to choose the same path I am. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to behave the same way that I feel is the best way. And that's okay, because that's the best way for them. This is the best way for me. And really kind of working through that. And, another thing, I'm still working overtime. Yeah. And my husband comes at me and he's like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
You put your 2 weeks in, it's not. And I said, no, that's not who I am.
Right. I'm the same way.
They're not treating you the best way. They're not treating you the best. There's a reason why you're leaving, but yet you're still going above and beyond. And in my head, I'm like, well, yeah, because that's who I am. That's what I do. I go above and beyond. That's who I want to be. I want to be that person. Mm-hmm. And then you have to stop and think, like, well, am I being taken advantage of? Or am I letting someone take advantage of me? And I am letting someone take advantage of me, and maybe it's time that I stop letting them. Because I see it happening. So that's the difference, folks. If you don't know the difference between the two, one, you don't know they're taking advantage of you and you don't see it coming and they just are. And the other one, they're taking advantage of you, but that's okay with you for whatever reason, because sometimes there's good reasons. You understand they're taking advantage of you, but you let them anyways. So there's what I mean by the two different ones.
Right.
And in this particular case, I'm letting them take advantage of me because I realize they're taking advantage of me and I'm okaying it, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Mm. And I'm starting to understand that maybe this is like a situation where that's not good, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So it's just been a kind of a crazy, very thoughtful week for me. A lot of different things bouncing around in my head, lots of different ideas that I'm trying to process through. I'm sure part of the issue is I'm still adjusting to the new meds, which is going well.
Good.
But I am experiencing some side effects, such as I'm very antsy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time focusing and holding focus.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. I almost want to be constantly doing two things at once or doing things with my hands, which is kind of difficult because the medicine that I'm on is one that takes away your appetite and is also used for a smoking cessation.
Mm.
So the Wellbutrin is actually known for both of those things.
No, I didn't know that.
It cuts back on your on the part of your brain that triggers those impulses.
Mm-hmm.
So my hands, where I usually would be eating or smoking or doing other things with my hands, my body's like, you don't want that. That's going to make you nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
But my hands are like, I need to do something. So
time to take up playing the drums.
I should take up playing the drums or knitting. The last time I went through this, I actually took up knitting because I needed something to keep my fingers occupied. So I did that for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very interesting. So I just got a lot of stuff, and I know part of it. Again, my head's racing, and part of my head racing is because it's a side effect that my body has to get adjusted to, calm down. The bad part is I still think I need to go up one more dosage on my Wellbutrin because I'm hyper emotional still, which is a side effect of the bipolar.
Right.
I'm very sensitive to begin with, as we've talked about on the show, but when I get hypersensitive, Kleenex commercials make me bawl. It's not even they make me tear up. They make me bawl. I can't. I'm right now in the process of looking for a new dog to be friends with my current dog. Not that anything's happening with him. Otis is still good. But I'm looking for a friend for him. And I'm on the Humane Society, and I can't read the bios. Because if I start reading the bio and it gets to, dog has been here since 2015, I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad. I just can't. I can't go there because otherwise I'd be like adopting every dog because they have to have a home. So it's been kind of interesting trying to manage and balance, and I'm glad I'm going through this stuff now because I'm hoping in another week or so I'll be better adjusted so that when I start the new job, I'm in the best possible place I can be.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically to kind of face the new challenges ahead of me. But we'll see how that works out. You can't future plan. I have to deal with it today and tomorrow will take care of itself. But so
before we move into the next part, there's something that we haven't been doing on the show that we used to do, and we used to do the win of the week. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I was actually talking to my therapist about it, and I was telling her how for me a lot of it was because of how I very much was either it's a big win or it's not a win, basically, kind of a concept. And when you realize that there's all these little ones along the way, it makes a bigger difference, and it helps you stay more in the positive realm. So, and when I was telling her about that, though, she was like, that is great. She's like, I really like that you do that. So I was, I was like, we haven't done that in a while. So we need to make sure that starts back up.
Absolutely. Well, let's start it right now. You got a win for the week, Brian?
Mine was honestly, probably yesterday, going to my grandma's birthday party and, seeing how people, how much they loved her or love her, I should say. It's not, but, showing their appreciation for her and everything. And not just that, but it was, my mom was there and, that family is my dad's side. So, but they all were open and warm to my mom and stuff. And not that they haven't been in the past, but you never know after, because my dad's passed away. So, you never know after there's been a split like that sometimes family doesn't stay close. Sometimes they're just kind of like, hey, we tolerated you because of the marriage. But they were all, super nice to her and my siblings that were there too, that are from my mom's previous marriage. And it was just nice to see that everybody behaved like adults and all that. But also for me, there's a lot of, I don't want to say animosity, but there's some hurt feelings with, between me and kind of what's gone on with my grandma over the years. And to sum it up real quickly, she was just never as close to me as she was my other brothers. And, I always felt like an outcast basically, but when she saw me yesterday, she was so happy to see me and, and so were my uncles that came in from West Virginia were, and stuff. So it was just a good overall situation. And there were a lot of people there, but it didn't get to me. So I think, all of that together is kind of mine.
That's awesome.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
When you can see someone mirroring back to you, some self-esteem and some good vibes, that's huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With me, I want to say my win for the week. It's tough because when I know it's going to happen, I can kind of spend some time thinking about it and pick one out. But I would say if there's anything I'm most proud of for myself is maintaining who I want to be in a situation that it's very easy for me to be negative. It's very easy for me to go down that road. And that may be great for other people, and I'm not judging if that's your path, but that's not who I choose to be, and that's not who I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going down that path at least once or twice, if not more this week, but I've stopped myself and no, that's not me. I don't want to be that person that, that's that way. Regardless of everything else, I want to, go through this with dignity, with, professionalism and a positive attitude, because that's how I want to live my life.
Right.
So.
Which makes sense, because a lot of people in your position would just mail it in, basically, or just not bother with 2 weeks. They just, hey, I'm done, and walk out, so.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I think I'm very, in fact, I know I am very proud of myself for being able to identify when I'm straying off the course and pulling myself back on to be the person I want to be.
Yeah.
How about you, Hannah? You got a win for us?
I'm definitely going with the idea that I ended up in a strange town with kind of not knowing anybody and turned it into a fantastic weekend.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for me. Yeah. It really is.
It would be for me, too.
It really is.
Mm.
That's huge. It is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I could have just as easily seen it if you were like, I just stayed in the hotel that night and whatever. Watch movies on my iPad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought I might have ended up doing that, but I really didn't want to. It was like I came here and I want to do something.
Yeah. It's always weird when you go on vacation and you do exactly what you would do at home.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah. And I didn't mind going out to the movie and stuff like that. That's fine. Sure. I don't always have an opportunity to do that at home. Just because things are going on. And, I could have gone up to Portland too, which was always a backup. But just the fact that it was like, all right, let's try this. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And kudos to Sharon, as kind of a aside. Kudos to Sharon for being cool with that. I mean,
I love my wife. She's amazing.
Right.
So there's some people, men and women, both sides of the fence that may not be as understanding and as supportive of that type of a situation. And folks, it doesn't have to be, sex related at all. It can just be going out and just having, fun and stuff like that. There's no, Tinder does not have to be hookups. You can just go out and have a drink and that ends there. So, regardless of the conversation or regardless of whatever else, the fact that Sharon was so cool to not only recommend it, but to be understanding and supportive of you having a good time. That's huge. That's huge. And so she gets an assist. There we go. That's what I'm
Nice.
She gets a win assist.
Right.
I love it.
She's on the score sheet for the night. Nice.
Yeah, it was really wild. I mean, it's like it wasn't even she just threw it out there. She's like, "Go on Tinder."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh,
yeah."
Well, think about that.
That's what I was saying is, there's a lot of people that use it for just like I said, they're in town for a couple nights. They don't know the town. So they're like, show me the town kind of thing, is what they post on there. And listen, a lot of them might be looking for hookups. That's their business, but
hey, it could be,
but it might not be on the same note. Yeah. It could literally be, they're like, I just don't want to sit in the hotel room. I don't know what to go do. So, take me somewhere fun, basically. So, yeah. It is a nice tool that can be used for that. You don't see it used as much for that, but it's there. It could be used for it. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, with that being said, sorry, shiny things distracted folks. I apologize. Focus. No, today we actually have a very important topic. And I don't think we're even going to go off of an article on this one. I think this is going to be a personal chat that we're all going to have. Now, I know since it was kind of born off of a situation that you went through, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, and this is the bummer part of my trip. And it is important because it brings up two sides of issues.
Yes.
That we've talked about on the show from both sides. And I am going to come across in this as both completely judgmental and yet also completely understanding.
Right.
Because I have this wonderful opportunity here all the time to talk about and hear you guys talk about your experience with something. And so I wanted to bring this up because part of it's just catharsis. This is something that is I'm calling closure. And it has to do with two very good friends of mine. And I should take this back. I say, so I'm going to give them fake names. So Eduardo is my first sponsor.
Right.
And a very important person in my sobriety. And Eduardo is there's no other way to put it. He's the sweetest, biggest, loving dork you've ever met. Like you look at him and it's just, he's a goober in all the most wonderful ways. He just says stuff. He embarrasses himself all the times with things he says, but they're actually funny. He's outgoing in the way that he was a party boy. He always wanted to be part of the party.
Yeah.
And when he got sober, he continued that socialization where he helped people. He was always out doing sports, playing, had friends. He'd go play tennis, he'd ski. He's a chef. So he knows, he's always seeing people all the time. There's this social aspect. And it's not to say that he doesn't, he's also a very, he likes his alone time. He likes doing things like that. But he had this part of him that he would, he'd jump in the car and go with you if you needed someone to talk to. He'd go on a hike with you, all this kind of stuff. And I really admired him. Now, let's see, what was it? Juanita.
Right.
Has been Sharon's best friend since kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
I did not meet her until she met her also because she is sober. And she had gotten involved with our local Christian church and would go to literally go to like the old folks' homes. And we have this one place which is basically the stopover for you're done. It was like people were dying and she'd go there to minister to them. Mm-hmm. She's a person that tended to isolate, but was making changes in her life to get out and and once again, really helpful to people in sobriety, just full of life. And these were the two things that when they got married, and when we had our little bachelorette party, these were the things that they shared about that they loved about each other. Mm. And then when they got married, they cut off the entire world.
Oh.
And it was very difficult. And because they were no longer the people that they were. If you looked at like one of those, like at the grocery store in the checkout line, one of those magazines where it says the 10 things to do for a successful relationship, they were doing none of them. It was very difficult, like I said, but I finally realized that the reason they're doing it is for love. And what more beautiful reason than that? Right. And it's none of my business. There is history in both of their stories, let's say, for isolating with a partner and doing things, and literally just the rest of the world no longer exists, and they did things that were not healthy for themselves. And but at least these two people are good for each other. Mm-hmm. They're
because so many times one of them is a bad influence essentially on the other one, and that's why they isolate, and then you hear bad stories.
There's abuse, and there is some of that in the story, and a lot of codependency, and also some family history and things like that lead to this. But they moved, they went to another state, and they own a business together. They own a home. I mean, everything's together. They have their church that they go to. I don't know too much about their daily lives because I really no longer talk to Eduardo. The last time I talked to him was a few years ago when he called me, and there were some difficulties, and he was having a hard time handling it. And what I wanted to say at the end of the conversation was, get your own cell phone and call me back. Click.
Gotcha.
They share a cell phone. And and the reason, I know this is, I'm talking about somebody else's life, but it's important for the story.
Right.
Juanita had been dealing with mental health issues of some sort. Mm-hmm. It was very apparent. And she has recently, and this is all secondhand, I've heard all of this through other people because, like I said, I just don't talk to them anymore. And she got a diagnosis and was getting treatment and blah blah blah. And I thought this was all great. And so one of the reasons I was going up to, I wanted to see them, and I didn't tell them I was going to see them because I know they're the type to suddenly come up with some reason why it's not going to work. Right. So I was going to surprise them. So I showed up in town and I looked up their business, and it turns out that they were on vacation. So I sent a message saying, are you on vacation, like went to somewhere else, like an island in the Pacific, or are you staycation? Because sometimes I go to the beach. And I got a message, and I heard nothing. And then the next morning I got a message saying, we're at the beach, and I asked, is there any possibility that I can come see you? And there was a long time silence, and then there was the use of mental health as a reason why I cannot see them.
Right.
And for reasons which I completely understand from a mental health basis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes sudden, unexpected visitors can be difficult.
Yeah, and because I'll tell you this, because for a long time, I'm exactly the same way. And I still am in a lot of ways. Not as much about using it as far as, if I tell you it's a mental health reason, I mean it now, whereas before I was using it as an excuse. Now if I say, hey, I'm having a depression kind of situation, that's really, or anxiety, that's really what's going on. But when somebody would just show up and be like, hey, let's go do this. And I'd be like, I don't have time to prepare. I can't get myself calm, this kind of stuff. It would almost send me into not a panic attack, but a really, probably a good anxiety attack, so you kind of got to know your audience a little bit too, because it's, you know, it can, like you said, it can kind of work either way. Some people that works great because they don't have time to worry or be or whatever. So that's, you know, for some people it works great. For others it doesn't. I'm one it doesn't work great for. So.
Yeah. And I'm a half and half. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's not, you know, so it all kind of depends upon the situation and the people involved and, you know, because, sometimes it'll throw me into a tailspin. Other times it's so much better because then I'm not analyzing and thinking about things too much, and I'm actually just taking action.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like, I'm getting better about that. Like, my brother comes over a decent amount, and he'll be like, hey, do you want to go over to GameStop? You know, look for those Funko Pops and stuff. And there's been a good amount of times where I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go. And now a lot of it has to do with it's close. If it was somewhere far, I probably would say no. But it's still close enough to my safe zone, you know? Yeah. But I'm getting better about it. I'm trying to do that more. Like, if someone does kind of hit me last minute, I'm trying to, do that because that's pushing through the anxiety, you know, which is a tough thing for me to do. That's where a lot of my anxiety sits. It's, again, first step. It's always the first step. Once I'm past that first step, I'm great. So, yeah.
Yeah, my response was, I completely understand, because I do. Yeah. And I said, I happen to do a podcast on mental health and wellness. Yeah. And we talk about these things. And so I do understand. I said, I'm here till Saturday if you change your mind. And I left it at that. And the response back was, because I was obviously texting with him first, and then now I'm texting with her. Yeah. Because, again, shared cell phone. Right. And she said, you know, something effective, thank you. I feel like so many people just don't understand at all. You know, blah, blah, blah. You know, and in contrast to this event, on 2 nights before, I called one of my oldest friends, and he knew I was going to be in town. I said, you know, you want to get together? He said, yeah, you know, I can come out to your house. And so he asked his significant other, you know, like, hey, Hannah's going to be here. And she was like right away, like, oh, the house, it's so dirty, blah, blah. He's like, nope, it's all right. I'm going to go meet him at the bar. Don't even worry about it.
Good enough. Yeah.
Because he saw right away the like, you know, the anxiety, and he's like, oh, not a problem. I'm going to go meet him in town. That is somebody who knows what's going on.
Yeah. He knows his life or his son.
He's dialed in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
He gets it.
And he is the master of isolation. I mean, you know, but he, you know, we've known each other for so long. This is like, no, it's not a question. So we went and met in the bar for a couple hours, you know, caught up, talked a lot about living with significant others.
Right?
But had the conversations that I love, that I have with, like, again, like I said, these are the conversations I have with my friends. We talk about life. We talk about the things that are great, the things that are difficult, and we share our experiences, and we laugh, and sometimes we're sad for each other, but that's friendship for me. And I was just like, you got nothing for me, Eduardo? You got nothing. Yeah. You don't even have an hour.
Right.
I haven't talked to you in years. I am, you know, 3 states over. Well, technically 2, but, you know, I'm here.
Yeah.
And you got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I completely understand, but I'm also done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yep.
But it's one of those situations, and it's so tough. Because trust me, I completely can relate. It's so tough when you hold yourself to a certain expectation, and when other people don't comply to those expectations, it's tough because it's like you understand the concept of, yeah, they're not going to be me, you know. So the concept's there, you get it, but it doesn't hurt any less. And it doesn't disappoint any less.
Yeah, exactly.
And those feelings are still there. Right. So then you're stuck because you're like, okay, logic dictates that I should be okay, but my emotions are saying I am not okay. So trying to justify and work all that out can be very difficult and very tricky. Because you're right. Those feelings are 100% real and fair, and, you know, exist.
Right.
So they have to be addressed and they have to be dealt with.
Yeah, I want to make sure that anybody listening knows that we're not really pointing out people who are just, I don't know, in ways we're not really attacking anybody who just makes stuff up. This is somebody who gave Henno a legit reason, and
this is legit.
Yeah, and you respected that. And don't get me wrong, people who make that stuff up, that is part of the process. That's part of it too, because that is the anxiety manifesting usually. Because what'll happen is, like me, someone will say, hey, in a month, do you want to whatever? And I'll be like, I don't want to say yes or no, because I really don't know 100% if I'll be able to. But people, unfortunately, when you're booking a hotel or various, like, you need a yes or a no. Maybe doesn't quite work sometimes,
Right.
But like me, I hate pulling out of something at the last second. I've done it so many times because of my anxiety or a migraine or some stuff like that. But, and I hate it because in my head, I'll beat myself up for that because, I've disappointed them. I've let them down. I'm this, they're not going to want to call me anymore. So it kind of feeds the beast, which again is exactly what anxiety and depression want, is for you to keep feeding them. But it's really difficult sometimes to push past that, that's the weird part about this, is especially now I'm at a point where I really understand both sides of it. And for a long time, I didn't understand what it was like for somebody on the outside, who doesn't have mental illness, who's has a friend that is, or whatever. I didn't get that because I wasn't that person, I was somebody with it and who used that stuff. Even if I didn't mean to or think about it, as soon as someone asks me, what happens generally is my brain starts coming up with reasons to not do something that way. And I think what it is in my head, it's softening the blow for later for them. That way, when it comes time and I'm like, yeah, I can't go, and they'll be like, well, you've said all this time, blah, 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 So I think that's what generally happens. But as the person from the outside, though, too, it's like, like you said, you called them, you said, hey, I'm here if you want to get together or whatever, and they didn't want to make, or couldn't. I don't want to discount whatever. Yeah, they either couldn't or whatever. Couldn't. Yeah. Whatever the reason, they didn't make time for you. So, it's very understandable for you to, like you said, being done. It's really understandable, So.
Yeah. And and the hard part is that you bring in, there's always history too.
Yeah.
There's plenty of occasions where there was prior to someone being diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're obviously feeling what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And they just don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's lots of reasons why they can't handle it. Right. But this is not new. The conditions are not new. They've been around for years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a person who has been functioning for years with it. Right. It's hard not for me to judge that. And I'm being super, I'm reading into stuff also.
Right.
Like the idea maybe they aren't actually getting it treated. Maybe they're trying to medicate themselves.
Right.
Who knows? I have no idea. Yeah. And it's so hard for me not to go, okay, what is it? And then just this part where I'm like, okay, I completely understand. If I was in that place and I'm trying to get better, I would want to control my environment also.
Yes. Like for me, like I've said before, it's a lot of it with me is how far away am I from my safe zone? And my safe zone is my house or my room, So the further I get away from it, the less I want to do that activity. The closer I am to home, the more likely I am to do the activity. And, but for a long time, I wasn't really functioning with people like you were saying that they've been functioning. I had been ruled by that anxiety and fear, to where I was constantly canceling on people or not doing things. So after a while, it became what people expected from me, to where I was the type that when I'd show up, people would be like, "Oh my God, you're actually here," which for the record does not help a person who has these issues. I get you're just having some fun and stuff, but it really does not help.
Yeah, because it's already been the conversation in your head.
Yes.
Forever and ever, and to have somebody just throw that in there.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't come from a bad place. They're not attacking you.
They're trying to make light of it.
They're just make it like, hey, because they're actually basically saying, we're surprised because you don't show up, and, they're generally happy to see you, but then they say that, and you're like,
the way I try to manage through a lot of that stuff myself, because I get, like, especially the codependency of the whole situation, and there's a lot going on behind those closed doors, so that none of us are privy to.
Right.
But
yeah, because even with me knowing what happened with me could be a totally different scenario with them.
Right. We really don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But what I can say is what I do personally because I have tendencies of going codependent, and I could very easily could fall into the quicksand of constantly checking my husband's phone, whenever he's 15 minutes late, constantly texting him and constantly being on top of him and pretty much squish him like a little bug. But I could very easily go down that path. But how I avoid it and how I personally try to stay above that is I keep pushing myself for independence and doing the what ifs, like, Brian, you talked about before, is going down the path. It's like, okay, what if he is cheating on me? What if that's my worst fear and he's 15 minutes late and that's because he's with another woman? Odds are he's 15 minutes late because of traffic. He's 15 minutes late because he got to work late. It's, there's a million and one reasons that make a hell of a lot more sense than, oh my God, he's got to be cheating on me type of thing. But worst case scenario, if that truly is the case, now, then obviously...
Really quick, worst case scenarios and what ifs are what now? Distorted thinking. Yep.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, or something, horrible happened. He goes, car accident.
Sure.
So we'll go both ways with that, right?
Yeah.
So the absolute extremes, the way I keep myself in check is I stop and think, okay, if he is cheating on me, then I don't need that in my life. And it's good enough. I'm glad I find out about it now. I can deal with it. We can address just as accordingly whatever needs to happen and move on.
Right.
Same thing with the opposite end of things. It's like, okay, I can handle this. I'm strong and independent and da-da-da-da-da. And I have to give myself these pep talks. But if I didn't do these things and I didn't take an active role and my husband didn't recognize his role in those things, such as texting me if he's going to be late to let him know he's being late, he takes his responsibility of making sure we communicate effectively so that it works. But if we didn't, I could completely be in that same boat of sharing a cell phone with my partner and, and that whole thing, which is not a good place to be, in my opinion.
Right.
That just my opinion, that I don't feel that's the healthiest of things to do. But same thing with shared Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts and whatever, social media accounts. Unless one person doesn't do a darn thing on social media and you're attaching them to your account, trying to get him to go in with it, that's the only excuse for a shared social media account, folks.
Like
they're free, for gosh sakes.
My brother and, his wife will post stuff on her account for him, basically. Because, up until like a year ago, he had a flip phone still, because basically all I need it for is a phone. This is a phone. He's like, I don't need to pay all that extra money for things I won't use. Now he's got a smartphone and he uses it a lot, but,
yeah, exactly. That's like one of the exceptions to the rule.
Right, but he still does zero social media. He wants nothing to do with it. Because when he sees it, it's annoying to him. So she will post stuff different times, or she'll relay messages to him, if there's something that needs to be. So yeah, I'm with you. In those kind of scenarios, sure, because he's not going to just start a page just to start one. I'd be shocked if he ever has one.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, when I was almost back home, I popped on and there was because I put a post on their business page saying, hey, I'm here in town, it's a bummer that you guys aren't around. And their response was, sorry, we missed you. And I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I get you.
But Jen, you just totally helped me, because one of the reasons I wanted to bring this topic up is because I do want to find the way that I can step through this with some grace and a positive feeling and true understanding. And the one thing that you just gave me is a perspective on the fact that I should have faith that they are doing things for their well-being,
mm-hmm.
and that Eduardo is doing something for Juanita's well-being, and they are doing what is best for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Not about that this is about their.
And that right there is something a lot of people don't understand. And again, I'm not making excuses. I'm not whatever, but a lot of people don't understand that. That's why they're doing these things sometimes, is it really is what's best for your mental well-being, essentially. And that it's not personal. Like when I cancel on people, it's not because I don't want to be around them or I don't want to this or that. It's because of me, not them.
Yeah, you're actually thinking exclusively of yourself.
Exactly. And I know that's selfish, but again, when you're talking about what you perceive as self-care, it's okay to be selfish to some extent.
That's it.
Yeah. So, but a lot of times, again, keep in mind that if you have people who are doing this to you, they are probably not trying to send you a message,
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're usually probably doing that for their reason. There are certain things you can do, and I've had people do this to me before, to where they'll shift something. Like they'll know there's a part of it that makes me terribly uncomfortable. So it's like, well, let's shift venues or activity kind of thing. And there's been times where that's made enough difference. Or, hey, do you mind if we come over instead? And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, because I'm at home. I'm safe. At any point, I'm safe. I know I can go into my room and so.
Yeah, have your moments, whatever you need.
Yeah. Yep. So if there's something like that can happen, that may be something for people to try also.
And that's why I threw that out there too. Is like, I'm here. I rented a car because this way I could go where I needed to go.
Sure.
And I threw that out there, and I keep having a heart, I keep wanting to call, that it's a choice, but it's not really when if somebody's looking at it from their own self-care, then it's really not a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough because it can be within that same spectrum. It can be a choice all the way over to they don't see it as a choice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's fine. Tough. One thing that I did, I got to talk to my friend Dolores about my friend Andrew, who I've shared with probably a little too much on here, who's in Michigan. And I don't talk to him anymore. It's not even enjoyable. And I just asked her, I said, what's your professional opinion on this? And she said, well, I bet if you look back 20 years, he was already like this. It just was never that obvious. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And she says, then he might just like it in this place.
Yeah. Well, you get comfortable if nothing else,
Exactly. And that he's comfortable in that level of misery.
Right.
And I was just like, which doesn't make it misery for him.
Right. Well, again, use my example. When I'm in my safe place, I'm not miserable. Take me 20 miles away, I'm antsy. There's only so much time that I'm going to feel comfortable being there before I want to be back here. So if
Yeah.
I tell you I don't want to go 20 miles, it's because I'm comfortable in where I am. And in my head, the misery is 20 miles away. Whereas from your perspective,
Yeah.
the misery is here because I'm isolating
Yeah.
and I'm canceling. So that's why I think this is so hard for so many people to handle, because of that and the previous point about taking it personally, because it's easy to do,
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Emotions are real, and that's the big thing that I think we have a tendency to somewhat gloss over. Is, we've talked about the one aspect of it, and the other aspect of it is how you have feelings they're nouns, they're real, they exist, and just because it makes sense to you that they couldn't see you doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. So
I still feel it. Yeah.
so it's like, but it's one of those things that I think with people, you have to feel the hurt, you have to feel the feelings to kind of help you go through it, and then by doing that, that'll help get you to that spot of understanding. Because the understanding's there. It's just kind of buried a little bit under the disappointment and the hurt and the, honestly, the bruised ego a bit. Because it kind of hurt. It stings when somebody says they can't see you or they don't want to see you. It's like, ooh, ow, you know?
And especially it's like, and it's me.
Yeah, it's like, it's me. I'm your buddy. I understand.
I'm not an acquaintance.
Right.
We've been through the trenches with life. We have shared life experiences, and there's a lot you don't know, which is the fact that I am probably the most understanding person that you could ever talk to about mental health issues nowadays. I have had a quantum shift in my perspective on these issues. Yeah. Largely due to doing this podcast with you guys. Yeah. And the two of you and actually listening to people's experiences and listening to the truth. It's your truth.
Yes.
And acknowledging it, not dismissing it, not denying it. And that's where I'm just like, and I go, okay, I've put it out there, and I take this as advice that Dolores gave me about the fact that, well, they like it in this place.
Yeah,
they like their life as it is, and that's fine.
Yep,
they that's completely up to them, and they like it.
Right, and odds are they don't see that really is a place of misery. Like I was saying,
not at all.
Like I said, to me, this is safe. I'm good here. Yeah. So to me, misery is out there, even though the truth is right here is the misery, because this is where I keep feeding the depression and anxiety. Going out there is how I beat the depression and anxiety, because you don't let them keep you home. You go you go experience life, because a lot of people don't understand too, how they can just get up in the morning and just go. You get ready, whatever, and you're just like, I feel like doing this. Boom, you just do it. For somebody like me, I generally, before I go anywhere, I have to sit in my room by myself for 10 minutes and basically just focus on breathing to calm myself down to go. And then in the car, I have to keep doing that kind of a thing because cars make me anxious, So, when we get, eventually you get to where you're going and stuff, but it's like a lot of people don't see or understand all those things I have to go through to just go somewhere, and so there's also times where you just mentally, you're too fatigued knowing that I've got to do all that stuff to where I'll just be like, I don't feel like going because
exactly. Cause
I just don't have it. Yeah. So there's a lot of that in there too. It's a tough spot.
This is the last part of it. I talk every week with people that are are living in solutions.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's always working.
Sure.
But you're trying to recover. You're trying to find solutions. You're trying to move forward in your lives. And so it's hard not to bring that along with me and start judging somebody. It's like, well, obviously you're not doing anything, but I don't know that. That is completely wrong. I have no idea where they are, and everybody's, whether it's everyone's recovery or advancement or whatever you want to call it, is on their time and nobody else's.
You're right. Yeah.
And I am in no place to judge that. And all I can do is hope that whatever they're working towards, whatever that is that they get there. And that may never include seeing me again.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking about Brian and Just Keep Calling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I don't freaking want to.
Yeah.
Right?
But there is, as we've talked in the past on here, there is a point to where, you're like, look, I've been trying for a long time here. I just don't have the energy to put into this anymore either. And, because that is draining. I'm sure being on the other side of this has to be, the constant disappointment of somebody that's like a really good friend of yours, like me. Tony was constantly, they'd be like, hey, let's go do this. And I'd be like, no, I can't, And that was my best friend I'm telling this to. This isn't just anybody. This is the person who generally can get through to me more than anybody. And I'm, and I constantly was canceling, and I didn't realize how bad it was until we did that episode and we really talked about it. And I was like, wow. And that was a huge, huge wake up for me, that it's like, you have to try harder. Like you're trying, but you need to double down here a little bit. But you're right. It's got to be on their terms. Essentially, much like anything, any recovery's got to be on the person's terms, essentially. You can't, they're not going to go faster than they feel like it.
That's it.
Now, I also want to point out that I know for the most part, I've discussed the sides of the person who has the stuff. I'm in no way discounting the other side. I fully understand that there's a whole, range of things that the outsiders have to go through. Again, you are disappointed. You can get hurt. Your feelings can get hurt and what have you. Maybe you hurt because you see them regressing or isolating, all these things. So I just want to make sure that that's known, that I'm only essentially I'm playing devil's advocate is what I'm doing, so I'm making sure we're trying to cover both parts of this.
And there's two things. One, my favorite word in the whole entire world, choice. And I adore that word choice, because every opportunity, every time something gets presented to us, we have that choice. We have the choice to call again. We have the choice not to call again. They have a choice whether they can accept the call. They have the choice whether not to accept the call. Every time we have an interaction, every time something happens, you always have a choice. You can burn a bridge to the ground till it's ashes. You have the choice to build the bridge again. If you want to. All up to you. You can. I have left relationships with people on the statement of, I can't keep doing this, but I am here and I will always be here if you need me. I can't keep reaching out, but I will be an open door for you anytime you need. Just come on and you reach out to me and I'll be there. Because that's what I could commit to. And, and sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes you slam the door in someone's face because it's done. You're over.
Right.
Boom. But they come knocking at the window.
Yeah.
And then you have the choice. Do I open up the window and let them back in? Or do I not? It's all of these opportunities, all these times, all these choices. Sometimes it feels like we're at a dead end and it feels like, okay, this is it. This is the epitome of done. This friendship is over. Whatever it is, whatever happens, it's done. It doesn't have to always be that way. You don't have to put any effort into it anymore if you don't need to or don't want to or can't feel you physically can't. But who knows what's going to happen down the road. So just make sure you leave yourself open to those choices, that you're free to make the choice, that you don't pigeonhole yourself into making a choice and that's it and it's final and done. So
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why I am not about to go making any statements to anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
I'm not making any proclamations.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just going to leave everything exactly where it is because it doesn't. It's okay exactly where it is.
Right.
It's probably where it's supposed to be. And I probably feel exactly how I'm supposed to feel, and they feel exactly how they're supposed to feel.
Yep.
And the only thing that's a little different here is Eduardo doesn't suffer from mental health issues. And
That
he is
he
chosen to be a caretaker
Yeah.
Yeah.
in excluding everyone else that he has ever known in his life.
Right.
And that's his choice.
Yeah, it is.
This doesn't
You're
mean we can't be sad about it, though.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I am sad about
Yeah.
that. The reason, and a lot of people are sad about it. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. People that are close to them are sad about it because they thought that he would maybe not fall into this place,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but he did. Yeah, and that's what he called me about 2 years ago. He saw the place he was in. He
Yeah.
wanted to know if there was a way out.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's-
unfortunately, I didn't have any really good advice other than what he told me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What he shared with me when I got sober, which is,
Right.
well, there's 12-step groups for this.
Yeah, really. I mean,
They're there to help you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you're not in a good place, then you can go there and do this. And that's why it's like, and I literally have heard nothing since then, and it's like, and that's the other part of it. But I'm not going to look at that because that gets easy to build resentment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas this is not about him and only him.
Yeah.
It's about he has accepted the role as a caretaker and also as a part of, as a husband, as a co-business owner, as a whatever, every aspects of their life is something that he has chosen, a responsibility he has chosen. And that is part of the equation here.
Yeah. You're right.
And it's only fair to accept it all together as one and say, you know what, once again, I'm going back to where I started. They're doing it for love.
Yeah. Because you're right. If you look at it the other way, where, like you said, it's easy to build resentment, it's really at that point, it really going down that path is the path of having to be right, because you'll resent it and you'll be like, well, if he had listened to me,
There's no.
so it's like, that's just a path to, let's just, flush that one down the toilet, move to something else, let's try not to go down that road.
Right.
And you know what the worst part is that everybody knew that I know up here that I was going there, and on Thursday night when I go to my men's group, I know what the question's going to be, and I'm just going to be like, you know what? All right, if somebody wants to know, they can listen to the darn podcast. I don't need to talk about this again, and that's why I appreciate you guys letting me talk about it tonight, and I appreciate the audience. And if somebody does listen to this who thinks that I overshared, well, this is my venue.
Yeah,
this is where I get to work things out. It's not going to go any further than this,
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and
and
it's not like
that's
you
what it
gave
comes down to.
detailed descriptions of the people, and we're not posting
Right.
pictures of them or anything.
And anyone that knows it knows it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
There you go.
Well, and you're not breaking any sort of like professional confidence or to where there's the ethics and whatnot. I mean, it's it's like you're
It's like,
telling
this is
how it would
my
affect you. Yeah.
This is my life experience. That's the thing.
Yeah.
This is something I experienced.
Right, yeah, you're not telling someone else's story. You're telling your story. They happen to be characters in the story is what it is. Just like if you listen to the storytelling podcasts, they generally will change the people's names, but it's like, I'm not telling their story. I'm telling my part of the story, or my side of, my truth,
And it's my perspective, and that's the funny thing about all of this from the get-go. And this is also the thing that I'm so grateful for. I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that I can
awesome.
see both sides of it. That means I am not in black and white thinking.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm not in catastrophic thinking. I'm not in so many different things on that distorted thinking list. I have been able to move past those because they dominated my life before.
Same here. Yep. That's why I said earlier I couldn't see both sides before. I could only see the side that I experienced. Now I've seen the other side because I've been around other people who've now done it to me. But also because people from the outside have told me what it's like. So then it's like, oh, like you start paying attention and considering that more as you're doing it. So it, as a result, you gain a lot of perspective you didn't have before. And like you said, I'm not one or the other on this. Like it's so easy because really this boils down to, I'm going to use the example we're using here, you and Eduardo. From your side, it's an excuse. From their side, it's likely a reason.
It's a reason, it is.
And it's so hard because they can both be the same thing and be drastically different,
Right.
So that's what, it's so hard to kind of separate this sometimes for people.
Yeah, but it really is the reason because it is the reason.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Exactly.
My perspective on it means nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the seeing the paradox in all of this, like right away there was just so much paradox. I was like, wow, this is some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I was in a little bit of a funk right off the bat. But I was like, I'm going to have a good time no matter what. And I had a great time.
Yeah.
Things went the way they were supposed to go.
Yeah, they did. Exactly.
And
exactly.
again,
they absolutely did. So,
and that's a great sign too, because you didn't let anger, disappointment, whatever the feelings would be, that stew of, no good. You didn't let that control you and ruin your whole time. It's, you gave it whatever time you needed to, and then you were like, I'm going to do something else. And, so that's good, because festering on, or, just, ruminating on something's just no good.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Also, ruminations on the distorted thinking worksheet.
Oh yes, rumination.
Yeah.
Great word.
Plus, I ended up at some serious dive bar and jumped onto a pinball game and hit 4 free games in a row.
Nice.
Nice.
I was like, I should be playing the freaking lottery right now. When does that happen? Actually, my left hand started to hurt a little bit. I'm just like, geez, anybody want to take this?
That's awesome.
This machine is hot.
Yeah. It's like, you're standing there and you're just like, I can't stop winning.
I was literally like, because it's so freaking loud. It goes, bonk, like does that loud clunking thing. I was just like, does anybody else hear that?
That's the sound of winning.
Winning.
Oh, man. That's too good.
Hey, thanks for the conversation tonight. It was very helpful.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of that, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you want to join us, you have something you want to talk about, let us know. We want to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to talk with you. So give us a shout out and email us at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. Go to our website, thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You could come to my Twitter. I don't post a lot, but I promise you I do watch it. So if you message me or you tweet me, I will be there. It's Jen's Crazy Life, Jen with a G. And you, Hanno, how can they reach out to you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno, and you can find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter. If you want to chat, send me a message.
All right. And Brian, how about you?
I was going to say, and you can send me a message and tell me how I'm wrong.
In all honesty, yeah, because maybe
I'm up for that.
Yeah, because if someone has something that it's like, hey, you don't understand this part of it, by all means, if we miss something,
bring it.
Let us know.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Because we do, like, the idea of opening a dialogue is great, and talking about this is the point of this podcast.
The point is not to have the answers. The point is to seek them.
Right.
Wow. That was profound.
Yeah.
There you go.
She probably read it off a coffee mug or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody write that down.
Yeah. Somebody's on Tiny Buddha. You can also find the show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod. I post when the new episodes go up. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work. So, keep the earbuds or headphones or whatever handy, or don't listen to it in front of the children's. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. Please go give that site a look and see if there's some other podcasts you may like from there. If you're using Apple Podcasts, formerly iTunes, please rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you're using Stitcher or Spotify, I totally forgot it. Please use the like or share options to help us get more visibility and whatnot there. And yeah, I think that's all the links. Excuse me. And of course, we'll remind you that we're not doctors, therapists, or trained professionals. Just three people sharing our opinions and experiences. If you feel as though you need help, please reach out to somebody, whether it's a doctor or a friend or, whatever it needs to be. Just please reach out to someone or call suicide prevention hotline number, or there's a bunch of other numbers and stuff out there for crisis situations to where it doesn't have to be a suicide. There's ones out there that are just you can talk about whatever kind of a thing too. If you do find yourself feeling as though you may harm yourself or others, please let someone know. Try not to be by yourself, and please reach out and get help. Again, there's all sorts of people willing to help you. You have to reach out. Or if you know somebody that you think is in that situation, please, try to get them the help that they need. If you find yourself, writing like a note or how you would do it, that's a giant red flag. So, that's the time to start, reaching out to somebody and try to nip that in the bud before it becomes a bigger situation. And, I feel like I'm forgetting something there, but oh well. And lastly, as I always say, please reach out to somebody. You never know. You might make their day. You might save their life. You might just make them feel good. Tell them you love them. Tell them you miss them. Tell them you appreciate them. Tell them you don't want to hang out with them. Whatever it's, no. I kid. But yeah, reach out to somebody and just, see how they are. I think that's all I got.
Well, folks, with that, keep breathing, wiggle your toes, smile at somebody, just one little smile, and see what happens and see how it makes their day. I know you hate that saying, just smile, Brian.
Yeah, I do.
And I'm not telling people to smile. I'm just saying for them to smile at somebody else.
All right.
So,
all right.
It's a little semantics. Come on. Anyways, with that, folks, have a great week.